Welcome to the Friendly Circle Berlin Recovery Workshop Series with Kyczy Hawk. Kyczy is a certified yoga instructor and author of numerous books on yoga for recovery, including Yoga and the 12-Step Path and Yogic Tools for Recovery. As a woman in long-term recovery herself, Kyczy brings to us these yogic tools she has used for her own recovery journey and has shared with many. She does a lot of volunteer work with in the prison system, and she brings it to rehab facilities and lots of other venues. And today's workshop is titled Yogic Tools for Recovery, Techniques to Soothe the Vagus Nerve. And we have been talking about the vagus nerve recently in our workshops on polyvagal theory, which has become more and more popular. Has become part of the recovery consciousness, in fact. And in this 90-minute workshop, Kyczy will review the function of the vagus nerve as a refresher and a reference point for the movements and practices we will be doing together. Thank you so much, Kyczy. This is Kyczy's third workshop with our group, and we're so grateful for that. Thank you, Kyczy. I'll now turn it over to you.
You'd like to hear what I'm saying. So yes, again, my name is Kyczy Hawk, and I want to thank you so much for inviting me back. It's reassuring to be asked to return anywhere. Obviously was not the case so much when I was actively drinking or using. Very few people wanted me to come back. I am a woman in recovery. I am a woman in recovery from both substances and self-defeating behaviors. I have been mulling over how I wanted to introduce myself because I don't want to spend a lot of time introducing myself, but I do like to state my qualifications because it is such an important touchstone, in fact, the foundation for why and how yoga tools have been so critical in me, as we say in yoga, waking up to my true self. Now, before vagus, I am going to talk a little bit about the vagus nerve. I'm going to talk about vagal tone. I am going to be talking about heart rate recoverability, and linking them all together to kind of help me verbalize to you the body of knowledge that is now coming out to both authenticate and validate our own felt sense experience and give us tools in order to address difficulties we may have in our bodies, with our bodies connecting to the mind, with the mind connecting to the heart, and with all of it connecting with our higher power. So back before we were talking about the vagus nerve, go back through time to perhaps 3 or 4 years ago, no, longer than that, people were finally becoming aware of the concept of adverse child experiences, ACEs. So I can tell you by going over the ACEs that my body was preset or altered, or my default settings were put into a new default setting just as a result of my adverse child experiences. The quick note on adverse child experiences is that this is a 10-question questionnaire that was developed in the 90s to help diagnose people who had more of a propensity for obesity. And then it was seen that, in fact, people who had a high value, checked yes to these 10 questions, actually were more likely to have many of a number of negative physical consequences or health deficits. And there are questions such as, was a member of your household mentally ill, or did another member of your household ever attempt suicide? Was there a drinker in the family? Were your parents separated or divorced? Did you experience a death of a significant person in your life early on? Did you ever have sexual relations with anyone who was 5 years older than you by the time you were 18 and on? So there are 10 questions. You can look it up, ACEs. And I can tell you that the ACEs set me up for things like eczema, styes, nervous stomach. I had a hiatal hernia by the age of 11 from often just throwing up bile due to nerves, inability to self-regulate in any way. By 11, I'm a little kid, and I have these negative physical responses. And I tell you that to tell you this, that early on, my vagus nerve got set into the hyperactive sympathetic nervous system setting. And I was told that I was too dramatic, and I was over responsive to things. And guess what? I found drugs and alcohol. And for years, I used them as a distractor. That is, it was fun. It was a way to find friends immediately. I always sought lower company. And when my low lowered, I found lower company. And in fact, my descent into alcoholism and drug addiction nearly led me to lose my life. I certainly lost my health. I lost my ability to connect with people. The desire to connect was there, but the ability to connect was gone. I wanted to be responsible. My ability to be responsible was gone on so many levels: physical, energetic, emotional, cognitive, and spiritual. I was completely out of step with my values. And that discord between how I was acting and how I believed, what I felt, what I knew to be right, that discord between my behavior and my ethics was so great that I thought that either death or going down the tubes of absolute addiction where there's no pretense at coming back from it, that was my only way out. Thus was such the pain of that dissonance. Going back to the ACEs and our nervous system and our digestive system and endocrine, all of our physical systems, they were so dysregulated that it was almost uncomfortable to recover. So if you're in early recovery and you find that it's still uncomfortable when you're not in a chaotic situation, welcome. If you're uncomfortable with peace and quiet, welcome. If it feels difficult to sit and meditate or breathe in an easy, comfortable way, welcome. Your system has been set on alert for so long that being calm can be abrasive and, if not just obnoxious. So, what was going on? My vagus nerve had a different level of neutral. So my reset was up here in hyperactivity, hyper attention, hyper vigilance. And because my brain had not really grown up past the age of 11, I was assessing my environment through a child's eyes. Even though I'd had lots of experience growing up, I was still a child. And so there was a very strong feeling of black and white thinking. Things were good or bad. I was at rest or I was totally active, shot out of a cannon in the beginning of the day until boom, I crashed at night. Everything was done with a great deal of enthusiasm, let's say. Of course, as my a very wonderful friend who has since passed on used to say, of course that would be the case. Of course. So that's the stage from which I stepped into recovery. And in my first dozen years or so of recovery, the steps and my engagement with the basic tools of recovery was completely sufficient. But there came a day when discomfort of growing to a new level, leaving a plateau, growing to a new level, the discomfort was so great that I started another addiction. And that was workaholism. And workaholism. We all work too much. We're too busy. We got too much stuff on the calendar. And that may be fine. It may be fine, but it really ramps up your energy system and your nervous system. And for me, coupled with the distracting elements of working all the time, was that I was distracted from growth, internal personal growth, and it was coupled with the sense of appreciation and lauding that I got from my bosses and my coworkers. I mean, they really loved it. Kyczy, you get this prize. You get to go off to do this presentation. You're the one. We can't do this project without you. And oh, my heart just opened up. I just yummed up. My ego just ate this up to the point that I realized I was totally other motivated, and there wasn't a lot of self appreciation. All of my appreciation came from the external sources, and I had to delve deeper into some of my behavioral addictions. The way into that discovery happened not through the brain, but through the body. And that's when I started practicing yoga, because these old patterns were knitted so tightly into my body that my brain couldn't conceive of them. And I mean that because my brain already knew what it knew. I'm a smart woman. I've read the books, Melody Beattie, I've done the steps in ACA. I've done this, I've done that. I've been in therapy for 20 years and so on. The mind couldn't get me out because a lot of the stories were nonverbal or pre-verbal. So let's talk about the vagus nerve and how we can utilize our understanding of polyvagal theory. And you've had some very eminent scholars talk about polyvagal theory. And if you weren't here for them, I know it's up on the YouTube, and they are really phenomenal presenters, very, very knowledgeable. I'm going to skip along the surface. And to that end, I'm going to share my screen and put up some slides. So here, share screen. And nope, I'm not going to do that yet. Patrick, you asked me if I knew how to do this, and I said yes, and then I forgot. So let me see. Let me go back to Zoom, and now I'm going to share my screen, and now I'm going to go here, and now we're good. Alrighty. I think this is going to be fine. Yep. And I'm going to move this little box.
You've muted yourself.
Of course, now it won't move on. Oh, all right, there we go. All right, next screen. Oh, don't get dizzy as I figure this out. All right. So The polyvagal theory, and pretty soon we're going to stop using the word theory because I think it's pretty much been proven. The vagus nerve goes down through the body in a couple of directions. Part of it threads down through the back of our body, part of it threads down through the front of our body. It touches all of our internal organs, our gut brain, our respiratory system, all of our senses in our cranium. It travels down the side of the neck. And some of the nerves are covered with something called a myelin sheath, and some of them are not. The one that is not is kind of our most prehistoric assemblage of our polyvagal, of our vagus nerve system. And each one of that, the back, the dorsal, the ventral, the stuff that goes through the front where we breathe, the myelinated and the unmyelinated, each of them have a job to do. And I would really like to state, not stress, but state that the dorsal and the ventral, that is our sympathetic and our parasympathetic, they're not good or bad. What they are is functioning. And we need to have them both. I need to be engaged. I needed to get my heart rate up, get my mind sparking so that I could put together what I wanted to tell you and to allow enough calm so that I could link it together systematically, but with enough enthusiasm that you know how I feel. So I'm titrating between my sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. I'm going smoothly between dorsal and ventral. I'm moving between the two. In yoga practice, we intentionally, and let me define yoga practice here. Yoga practice, as I just said it, I meant a mat practice where we're using some breath work, we're doing some postures, and we may even have the ability or the time to do some meditation. That's kind of what we think of as yoga. But yoga is actually a healing system that begins with ethics and values that I referred to earlier, that my ethics and values that we find when we do the 12 steps were being violated by my addictive behavior and my addictive processes. So we have values that we practice, and then we move into the healing postures, and we move into breath practice, and we learn how to let go of outside stimulation, and then even unnecessary internal stimulation. We learn how to concentrate, and then to meditate, and then to surrender to our higher power. You can see why yoga, hatha yoga, is so like recovery. So back to the mat practice. One of the reasons that yoga is so amazing, different from a lot of other physical practices, including the contemplative practices of Qigong and Tai Chi, is that we have a stated intention with the body. We also move the body into a state of engagement, of physical engagement. We get some physical sensation in the postures that we can be, our attention can be brought to, so that we can embody that sensation through proprioception, internal investigation. We feel how we feel in the process of doing yoga, and then we heal what we can heal through the process of yoga. So in a yoga posture, whether it's because of I'm moving to the extent, if you move your arms behind you, you can feel like that's as far as my arms are going to go. And that is like feeling the extent of that stretch, whether it's I'm teasing the extent or I'm teasing the duration. Holding the arms up for 2 minutes will make you really aware of your arms. So whether it's duration or extension, we're brought to that somatic body-mind connection. A yoga teacher may bring you through yoga postures that help you integrate sensation and integrate the sensation of fatigue, and then allow you to move back down to comfort and then into Shavasana. So you kind of learn how to arc physical sensation. The magic power of learning to arc physical sensation like that is, number one, you get to learn that it passes, that physical sensation passes. As long as it's not a hot, sharp, sudden, or unusual increase of chronic state of condition, you're not going to harm yourself by being fatigued in a muscle. You learn how to titrate in and out of the physical sensation, which, let me tell you, your nervous system is clocking. It's going, okay, so this is a little uncomfortable. Okay, let me see how I can find comfort, or let me see what my duration of tolerance is. And then guess what? We get to practice that with our emotions. We get to practice that with our memories. We get to practice that as we move into new ways of behaving that are uncomfortable initially for us. Think about the first time you set a boundary with someone and your heart's racing and you feel the back of your neck getting clammy and you're just, testing your deodorant and you're just wondering if it's all going to work out okay. And then you go, oh, whew, all right, nothing exploded, no one died. I'm good. And then next time it's a little easier. So it's not a one and done. I don't just practice it once and it's good for all. Practicing a boundary with a family member is going to be a little different than practicing at work. But you notice that you're titrating in and out of excitation of your vagus nerve. You're a little bit nervous, your heart rate is increasing, you might feel clammy, mouth might become dry, maybe your eyes are dry, and then afterwards you may feel a flush of recalibration. You do a little shaking, you do a little bit of reassessment, check in with your body, and you're good to go. So you've done what animals in the wild do. You've taken, because you're in charge of this moment of setting a boundary, you're in charge of that. You decided to do this, and good on you. You've decided to set this boundary, you set the boundary, and then you kind of recover from having done that. That's just so excellent for your nervous system. Knowing how we feel is really important, feeling physically. Yes, we know how we feel mentally sometimes, but sometimes the gateway to getting the nuanced emotion is to feel the body. As after you've got sad, mad, and glad, there's actually a host of feelings of each one of those and a rainbow in between. In order to not just grapple with, but encounter emotional discomfort, we need to be grounded. And I don't often use words like need or have to. I use avoid, or it would be useful, or generally. It is very difficult to learn when you're not grounded, when you don't feel safe. If you don't feel safe and secure, new information can't cling. Your brain is just very, very busy trying to keep you okay. So we want practices to soothe the nervous system so that we can feel whatever okay is for us at that particular moment. And it will be different for different situations in different moments. Depending on who you're around. If I'm around people I don't know, my concept of okayness might be need to be much greater than if I'm around friends. When I'm around friends, I have an accepted level of okayness just because they're friends. And then I want a little icing on that okay cake so that I can learn new things, find new challenges. How do we get the nervous system so that it is more toned? And now I'm going to talk about vagal tone. So the nervous system is more toned so that it can move more easily between excitation and calm. How do I get there? How do I get so I can be really excited about doing a presentation and yet coherent enough to give it? That's a really fancy level to achieve because, I get nervous and I get excited. So we're going to practice a few of them later. There are many practices. They have to do with stimulating the sensation in the mouth, where some of the vagus nerve goes, in the throat, right? Even humming you might feel it all the way up in your scalp. Breath that you can feel between your throat and your low belly. Right? And if you're a yogi, you might be thinking chakras, yeah. Yes, exactly. We can bring practices of intention, excitation, and then release. And there are some very fantastic Kundalini breath practices that take you to a point of fatigue and excitation and then release. We're not going to do those today, but they exist in nature. So, going to go down. So what the heck happened? So I talked about, I'm going to go back to vagal tone. I talked about what happened to myself historically. But it isn't as if the day that I got sober, a gate dropped and I no longer had issues and events that caused me stress, caused me trauma, caused me discomfort, fear, anxiety. That happens all along the path because life is life and it keeps coming. And many of us over the past few years have dealt with a lot of social trauma. We've had a worldwide epidemic or pandemic that caused the whole world to experience something similar. We've had social unrest. We've had political unrest. Just in the last 6 months, we've had some holidays, some go well, some don't go so well. So there are some financial challenges around the holidays that even if you don't have family challenges, you might have financial challenges, you might have travel challenges. All of this stirs up the old feelings. And when the feelings haven't fully healed, it can instigate prehistory or instigate feelings from the past that haven't been fully vetted and vested. Right now, in probably all over the world, but because I'm so focused on my area here, we're having a lot of weather challenges. And that is causing, whether you yourself are experiencing some sense of insecurity about weather, you might know someone who's experienced insecurity around weather. That just stirs us up. So we've had historical, personal story, historical story, low-grade anxieties, a worldwide pandemic. We've had political, weather-related, you name it. It just keeps coming. The hits keep coming. And it might seem like there's no chance to get a level set. We can, when unaddressed, these unsafe sensations can lead to disorders in the body. I mentioned ACEs before, and the ACEs, if you've grown up in one of those adverse childhood experience households, or multiple households, in case you were housed in many homes and didn't have the same parental type units ongoing, that we have behavioral sequelae, negative behavior sequelae, mental health sequelae, and physical health sequelae. You've got digestive disorders, respiratory disorders, autoimmune diseases. Yeah, there we go. Your microbiome may be impaired. So having grown up in disarray, may be added on to that, or I shouldn't say added on, because I don't mean that we went out looking for a life of discord and pain and separation. You know, addiction is a disease of separation. We didn't look to become separated from our families, from our friends, from ourselves. But that's what addiction does, whether it's behavior-wise, whether you're gambling, smoking is a way to disassociate. We had a lot of coping mechanisms, but these disordered coping mechanisms on top of a disordered childhood has had an impact, and it takes a long time to heal. Now, that we flippantly used to say 35 years ago in recovery that the first year is physical, second year is mental, and the third year is spiritual. Well, holy moly, it took me a lot longer than that. It took me a lot longer than that to heal physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Took me a lot longer. And some of the impacts to my systems were more easily repaired than others. Some still remain dysregulated. When any one of these systems is dysregulated, whether it's the gut, our hormonal system, our immune system, respiratory, circulatory, or nervous system, you know, and I'm not addressing musculoskeletal or muscle systems. It's just like the set point on your vagus nerve of being able to be calm and being engaged or hyper engaged or frozen out and withdrawn. So either, you know, whatever your loop is, to be able to move smoothly between the two may be easier to see than the regulation of our microbiome, our immune system. We just notice when the problems are gone. The good news is that working with the vagus nerve can help heal these systems, or at least cease endangering them. So I want to talk about, let me see if I'm ready to talk about it. I have to look at my pages in advance. Ooh, yes, we're ready to talk about it. Don't get dizzy, just close your eyes, I'll tell you when. There we go. Okay, now you can open your eyes. Nope, you can't open your eyes yet. HRV. Ready for the next buzzword? HRV. It's heart rate variability. So, heart rate variability, like your heart wasn't meant to beat like a metronome. It wasn't meant to just go thunk, a thunk, a thunk, a thunk, a thunk. It goes thunk, a thunk, a thunk, a thunk. It speeds up when you're running, or if you're thinking about something scary, or you're watching a movie and something happens, your heart is meant to pick up. And it's also meant to slow down. Meant to slow down. When you're listening, your heart is a little slower than when you're speaking. When you're in Shavasana, it slows down. When you're petting an animal, it slows down. So having the ability to speed up and slow down is what the heart is meant to do. And it's meant to do so with actually great fluctuation. That's your heart rate variability. What's the space between your heartbeats? And the space between your heartbeats is meant to vary. It's not supposed to be like a metronome. It might wear out if it was always beating at the same rate, always doing the same thing, back, 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 back. So it gets to exercise. Excuse me, I've got to adjust my seated position here. Yes. There we go. All right. So the heart rate variability, if your heart rate is not very variable, that is, if there isn't a lot of distinction for you between being super engaged and super calm, then there are some health issues that can be gauged by the fact that your heart rate is not very variable. Now, the fun thing is that we have a lot of devices nowadays to kind of be able to map your heart rate variability. Like, what is it like when it speeds up, and what is it like when it slows down? I don't know. So I can put my thumb over the lens of my camera, and my heart rate variability can be measured by an app. Or you can get devices to wear. But like knowing what it is doesn't really, I mean, that's knowledge, but it's not wisdom. We got the rate, but what the heck does it mean? Well, what if my heart rate variability, and there is no one perfect heart rate variability, it is dependent on age. It could be your size, how tall you are. If you're really, really tall, your heart rate is going to be different than someone who's very, very short. You got more blood to pump. So it's going to be different. And your lungs, your respiration is going to be different. So you can't have one size fits all. Again, not black and white. What's healthy for me? What's healthy for my system? Heart rate, I tell you that to tell you this, heart rate variability is one of the measures of vagal tone, and vagal tone is one of the measures of the health of your vagus system. Vagal nervous system. So, well, there you go. How can I assess this? How can I see what my vagal tone is? How can I assess for my body, my age, my experience, what is healthy for me? I know so well what unhealthy is. I know from being anxious. I know from waiting for the other shoe to drop. I know, perhaps even I know that like when there's a slight happens, or when I get upset when I'm driving, or mad at someone in the grocery line, that it takes me a while to cool down or let go. That may be a sign that my heart rate variability measure is small, that I don't recover very fast. I need to be able to be super engaged. I need to be able to calm. Those are two parts of being a human being. Our pets get like this. Animals get like this. They get, how about horse gets startled, clamber away from away from the source, and then it will pause, and then all of its skin will flicker as it begins to get back into its body. And you will know that you have a nervous horse if that doesn't happen, right away, or if it takes a further distance and more quivering, you know that you have a nervous horse. Well, I could be a nervous horse. Back those years ago, before I started practicing yoga, I didn't know how to feel the sting of my feelings without reacting. I couldn't sit with my feelings unless I was in my therapist's office Or unless maybe I was talking to my sponsor, like that, it might be like sometimes when they could say, well, you know, what are you going to do with that feeling? Or what is that really like? Or what brought you to that point? So I might be able to talk myself around it. My most common response to how are you feeling about, what do you feel about that was, well, I think. Completely out of my feelings. When I started practicing yoga, and in particular added neurogenic yoga and somatic yoga, and all of those are available on the internets as well as with private teachers. When I was able to utilize yoga not as an exercise, not as a way to get a yoga butt or to be one of the crowd, when I was using yoga as a therapeutic, and I can't say therapeutic in my name in the same sentence because I'm not a certified therapeutic yoga teacher. But when I started using yoga therapeutically, as its original meaning of a healing modality, I was able then to notice my breath when I became dysregulated. I was able to notice my the sensations in my body and be able then to pause, observe, and then make a choice. So we talk in recovery about the difference between reaction and responding, or between impulse and intention or inspiration. That there comes a time when we have a mental shift and we're able to take a pause, a breath, and make a choice. And in yoga, I was able to learn how to link the two, the pause, the slash breath, and the ability to make a choice. So what's the solution here? What if oh my God, once I assess my vagal tone or my heart rate variability and I find out that I've got these markers and I'm not really sure what they mean and I don't know what to do about it. I have two things to say is number one, don't worry. And number two is while I'm going to be teaching you some tips and tricks on how to encompass, envelop, and have compassion toward your current state of being. None of these are to be, are a form, avoid spiritual bypass. So when you feel lousy, notice you feel lousy, maybe write about feeling lousy, and then try one of these tips and tricks I'll be talking about how to re-regulate your heart rate and get your breathing into an even pace, and to begin to utilize some of the strategies to increase your heart rate variability and hence your vagal tone. So I've said a lot about stress being a necessary part of life, and how life is going to happen, surprise is going to happen, the unexpected is going to happen, the disappointing, the anxiety producing is going to happen. And how we react or respond, how we choose to react or respond to it can be more and more of a choice over time. All of these are practices. I mentioned earlier, it's not a one and done. It isn't black or white, good or bad. Let's do something. Let me do something first before I go into more talking. Science catching up with yoga. Yoga has a way of breathing called alternate nostril breathing. And I'm just telling you about that to say that we have a way of breathing that if we breathe in through the left side, we say it's stimulating the right side of the brain, and breathing in through the right side stimulates the left side of the brain. And in general, it switches about every 90 minutes. I think physical proof that we were not designed to either be always on or always off. We have that variability. But we can see whether or not which nostril is dominant. And then you might be able to perceive a sense of relative level of excitation of the body. So if your left side is more dominant, you might be feeling more engaged. And if your right side is more dominant, you might feel more receptive. Both are excellent qualities. So how do we find out about this? Give yourself a mustache. Put your finger underneath your nose and breathe out equally through both nostrils, nice and slow. And try it again just to check again. And once again, and this time, bringing your conscious mind to the quality of the breath, and you may find that one nostril has more of an oomph on the exhale than the other. You may feel more breath being expelled from the left nostril, or you may feel more breath being expelled from the right nostril. It's very slight, it's very nuanced. But in general, we have a dominant nostril and a passive one, and they switch from side to side. Yogis have told us that if you want to get more engaged, and engaged meaning out of the concept of craving, that you would breathe in and out of the left nostril only, and that will dispel the phenomenon of craving. So you would just place a finger on the right nostril to keep it from operating, and you breathe in and out through the left nostril. And as you do this, remember you had an intention to address the phenomenon of craving. So you have intention lying down here in this process. You're also practicing. After about a half a minute or a full minute, you may feel a shift. And by a shift, it could be how your nervous system feels, how bright or light your consciousness feels. And the suggestion is that you do this from 5 to 20 minutes, and we're not going to do that now, but do it long enough until you feel a shift. I'm going to let go so I can speak without sounding like I'm pinching my nose. But one of the shifts you may feel is that you may feel a yawn coming on. I just can't even say it without yawning. You may feel that your eyes water. What you've done is you have reset your vagus nerve. When you go to the doctor's office and they put a tongue depressor on your tongue and you go, ah, and you might wonder what the heck they're looking at. They're looking at the state of your nervous system. So if you hold up your phone in selfie mode and turn on the video and hold it in front of your face and go, ah, and you have to make the noise. You can't just open your mouth. You may notice your uvula. And yes, boys and girls we all have uvula. And if it hangs straight down and draws up when you go, ah, then your nervous system at that moment is evenly calibrated. If it doesn't go up and down, but yet moves and sticks to one side, or maybe it's always stuck to one side, it notices it's evidence of a dysregularity in your nervous system. Another way that you can play with your vagus nerve and play with your heart rate is to feel your own pulse, setting your hand in your wrist in your hand and lightly placing the fingers over your pulse point. You just kind of feel around until you feel your pulse. And then inhale slowly. And exhale slowly. You have to do this a couple of times in order for yourself to notice what the rhythm is. And then you can play with this. You can inhale very briskly and exhale very slowly, and see if that pulse rate changes after you do that a couple of times. Create evidence for yourself that your breath rhythm and your heart rate, your circulatory system, how your heart is beating, are linked. When you're feeling dysregulated, I'm going to try to wrap this up fairly quickly here. When you are dysregulated, and some of these you've heard from old wives' tales, but it's true. Take 10 breaths. It's true. Just pausing and breathing can help re-regulate you. Throwing cold water on your face, you're going to something happens, you go into the bathroom and you just start throwing cold water on your face. Your instincts were 100% correct. That was pretty awesome of you to know intuitively that cold water will kind of shock your nervous system and stop the overaction in its tracks so that you have an option or at least a chance of re-regulating. To bring tone, not in the moment, that is, splashing water on your face will re-regulate you for a short period of time, but a practice that will help you is, well, of course you have to have a breathing mechanism, but to plunge your face into cold water and hold it as long as you can several times. I don't personally care for that. I opt for the ice cold eye pillow. So I put my yoga eye pillow in the freezer. And then I set it on my eyes from time to time. And that coolness goes directly into my eyes, directly in my temples, directly into my vagus nerve, and allows me a sense of pause. Elevating the legs with legs up the wall pose will immediately bring your system into equilibrium. And it also has the extra added attraction of being a very grounding pose. And earlier I mentioned that new information finds nothing to grip to if you're anxious. So legs up the wall, lying on the ground can often give you the sense of calm so that information is more easily digested. When I am overwhelmed, when one is overwhelmed with feeling, and we learn this in yoga postures, is to focus on one sensation at a time. So if I'm dysregulated because my feelings were hurt, I made the mistake. I'm making a joke here, but I made the mistake possibly of saying to my husband, "Do I look fat in this dress?" And he says, "Yes." First of all, I didn't, and he didn't, but I use that trope to say, okay, now I feel bad. I feel bad because my feelings were hurt. There's a sting. Where is this sting? What is it doing to my breath? Let me just pause this whole situation and become embodied. Let me feel my physical feelings that will give me an entree into my emotional feelings, and then I can cognitively process what just happened. And then it doesn't become stuck in my tissues. I talked earlier about those pre-verbal or experiential traumas that happen that don't have words, that don't have stories, that get stuck in the body. So that it doesn't necessarily come out in step work. It doesn't necessarily come out in conversation. Talked about breath work. We're going to start off by doing some breath work, and then we're going to do some eye work, and then we're going to do some postures, walking in nature, petting your pets, laughing. Now, sometimes we laugh when things are really horrible. You think of gallows humor, or where we reset our nervous system when something horrible has happened, because that's the only way we have of processing it. And guess what? Laughter is a breath practice. It's ha, 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 ha. And you've reset your nervous system by laughing. I'm going to stop this. I've got about 1,500 other things to say, but I would really like to practice. So here we are back. I think we're back. And adult childhood adult children of adverse childhood experiences contributed to my ACA, contributed to my addictions, contributed to my codependency, contributed to myself being a foreigner to me, contributed to the way I process life. All of these kind of had a span, and it had an impact on my nervous system, and it had an impact on my heart rate variability. It had an impact on my abilities to cope. Once I was able to move into the physical sensations of the emotional landscape, I was more able to develop practices that could help me heal. This is one of them. This is called the bee breath, Brahmani. And in fact, it does need to be done out loud. So allow yourself to let go of your surroundings. Don't worry about who can hear you. I'm not going to worry that you can hear me, because we're going to be doing this together. It's called the bee breath because we're making a little humming sound. The looser you touch your lips together, the more vibration you can feel. You can even touch your teeth together in the slightest amount and create some resonant vibration throughout your skull. So you can make this as elaborate or as simple as possible. But what this is a massage of your vagus nerve. So let's do this. Let me start my timer, because I don't know time when I'm in the present. I'm going to start this timer for a minute. So this is what it is. Inhale through the nose, lips are lightly touched. Finish the one that you're on and then do one more. This is the basic Brahmani or bee breath. You can also plug up your ears and lace your fingers over your face and cover your eyes. But for some people, that is dysregulating. If you've had a harm done, or if you have ever been restrained, that could be a very unpleasant feeling. If that's happened and you've addressed it, then this may be fine. So let's try it once. Thumbs in the ears, fingers on the face, gently on the sinuses and across the skin of the forehead up to the scalp. Now let's try it that way if you like. Finish the one that you're on. Bring your hands to your lap and just feel what happened. And notice if anything was different. If you liked it better, didn't like it as much, if that brought the tone more into your scalp or into your throat, just notice it's all good. It's just a difference. Last breath for now, and then I'm going to go to the mat and we're going to use some eye movements with yoga postures just to investigate. So this isn't a yoga class. This is just an example of how eye movements can be brought into the yoga practice. Eye movements are one way to reset the nervous system. I don't know how many of you have read this book. Let me see if I can. It's written by a non-doctor with a foreword by Porges and Shield, Accessing the Healing Power of the Vagus Nerve. Talks a lot about what impacts of the vagus nerve can have on the body of dysregulation, and some practices that you can utilize to bring it back into healthy vibration, vibrating between on and off. One of the ways that we bring breath and heart rate variability into resonance, meaning that they are in a very healthy union, is through an even breath practice. Now, the suggested time is 10 minutes. We're going to do it for 2 just to get a flavor of what the breath practice is, because, well, time. If I can get this to stop at 2 minutes, that would be great. All right. This is the setup. Number one, whatever I suggest or anybody suggests, if you begin to feel dysregulated, and I'm not going to define that, you'll know what it is, when you're doing a breath practice because of holds or spacing or rate, please throttle back till you don't feel dysregulated, or just come to your own native breath rhythm and just skip that breath exercise. Breathing is to be yummy, not an Olympic event where you're trying harder than anybody else. In this breath, we breathe in and out. I know you're going to think 2 to 1. Everybody's ready for 2 to 1. Surprise. Even breath. So we're going to inhale and smoothly come to exhale and inhale again with nary a pause. Just as we switch gears between in and out, that's as long as we're going to pause. And one works toward 5 second in, 5 second out. That's about what I am going to try. You work at your own pace. It could be 5.5 seconds. It could be 7 seconds. See what works, but breathe in and out for the same rate. We're going to start now. So inhaling for 5, exhaling for 5. And again, out. In, out. Let it be smooth and easy. For those of you who've been practicing 2 to 1 for a long time, speeding up the exhale might be a little bit of a challenge. That's why we're doing it for 2 full minutes, just so that you can get the rhythm. Change. 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 Your last breath. So you may have found that it felt a little rapid, or you may have felt that it felt a little slow. It's an unusual breath practice, but that 5-5 is said to be very useful in getting your heart rate and your breath rhythm and your pulse and everything into synchronicity. Let's come to the mat. So I'm going to adjust this as I move back. I know we only have a few, like 20 minutes left here, but I never want to give Tadasana, standing mountain, a short shrift, because it is such a vital pose. So first, please stand on your feet, feel your feet, appreciate the alignment of your body. Now, if you're in a chair and are unable to stand up, you can do seated Shavasana, bringing the knees over the ankles and the shoulders over the hip bones and the ears over the center of the shoulders. You can sit intentionally. I'm standing intentionally, incorporating the ground, pushing down my feet down into the ground and lifting the crown of my head up. And I'm breathing. Before we start, we're going to loosen the inside of the body by tapping the heels. So I'm bouncing my heels against the ground. My knees are soft, my arms and elbows, my shoulders are soft. This is just a really quick way to get fluid into your fascia, juice up the body, get the joints going. We've been sitting. You guys have maybe been walking around, but I was sitting, maybe concentrating. This is a good way to get the juice going through the body. And I'm just doing this for about a minute. And But you can do this for 5 or 10 minutes and do your body a huge favor of hydrating that fascia and come to stillness. Feel what you feel. Notice. I will say that often in the practice. What do you notice about how you're feeling? Where did your attention go? And what was the sensation that you observed? Turn the toes of the right foot out. The left foot is going to step back, toes about a 45-degree angle. We're coming into what's called a warrior one. So there's some distance between the ankles. This is not the most fabulous, deep warrior one, because that's not what we're doing. Getting grounded through the legs down to the feet, just as we did in Tadasana, pulling from the abdominals all the way up to the crown of the head. Bring the arms forward and up and overhead, bend the knee. Please find a pleasant breath rhythm. We're going to utilize a little bit of vagus reset through the eyes. You're going to lift the chin up and look up. Inhale here. Exhale, keep the eyes up as you bring the chin down. As you exhale, all the way down, chin down, eyes up. Look down and lift the chin up. Inhale. I'm inhaling as I look down. My eyes are down. I'm looking at my cheeks practically as I lift my nose up to the ceiling. And looking up at the ceiling, exhale down. Don't forget about the body. Feel the feet and the legs, the hips. Now, your rate of breath may be a little faster than mine, or it could be slower than mine. This is when you personalize your practice, looking up as you bring the face down. Looking down as you bring the face up. One more time on this side. Up. Come down, keep the posture and the breath. Find the balance between effort and ease. Last time coming up. Go ahead, lift your eyes up, look up, bring the chin down, gazing in front of you. Bring your arms out and down. Step the back foot forward. Tadasana. Now there's a couple of things for your internal sensation reporter to tell you about. So notice the left side of your body and the right side of your body. Notice your breath rhythm. And also notice the chatter in your mind. Did your mind dislike that? Was it curious? Was it wondering what it was good for? All of those are correct. Bringing the other leg back. Other side. Starting the posture from the soles of the feet. Bend the knee of the front leg. And I didn't mention it on the other side, but I'm going to mention it now. Keep all of the muscles in the back leg firm. All the way from the glute down to the heel. Let the muscle grab the bone. Hold on with some intention. Bring the arms up. Now you already know what to do because we did it on the other side. You're going to lift the head up. Inhale here. Exhale as you bring the chin down. And inhale with the eyes down as you lift the chin up. I'm going to give you a few physical cues while you're doing this. See if you can draw the shoulder blades onto your ribs in the back. If your elbows don't want to be straight with the arms straight overhead, bring the arms slightly forward or out to the side. Keep the feet on the floor and have the muscles of the legs still be consciously engaged. So don't let the body go on vacation because you've got this confusing breath and eye practice going on. 2 more times. That is, look up. Look up as you bring the chin down. And this is the last go round of looking down as you bring the chin up. And then bring the face forward, eyes forward. Bring the arms down. Bring the back leg forward and take a moment. Those interoceptive powers, noticing where you feel circulation, noticing if there's any sense of fatigue in a part of the body, noticing what the breath is like, noticing what the heart rate is like, and the condition of the mind. Warrior 2. Stepping the left foot back, right foot stays forward. Now you're positioned so that your body's toward the long end of the mat, bending the front knee, starting at the soles of the feet. Establish the posture first. Oh, nice breath. So here in this posture, which we're going to hold steady, feel the posture. Make sure that you're in an arrangement of the posture that's okay for you to hold for a minute, maybe a little bit more. Not only is your face, your head turned to the left, but you're going to turn your eyes to the left as well. So your eyes are almost looking behind you as right. So my face is toward my right hand, but my eyes are moving over to the right side of each socket. So I'm really looking over to the right side. We're going to stay here for almost a minute. This is another vagus nerve reset for the eyes. So while the body is in as much rest as it can find in this posture, I'm also resetting the vagus nerve. And when your eyes are over to the side like this, you might find that your mouth gets a little more moist. Your nostrils may flare a little. You should keep the body at that balance between effort and ease. If you're working really hard, the vagus nerve can't reset, because it's basically holding on for dear life, and you're kind of in vagus neutral here. So you want it to be easy. So if the arms are really fatigued up like this, you might lower them a little bit, or you could even rest them on your legs. So figure out how you can remain at a fairly neutral physical effort level, but still have the eyes over at the corner. Couple more breaths right here. And then gaze forward over your right hand, turn your face forward, drop your arms, all 10 toes forward, pause here. So the trick in incorporating the vagus nerve reset, I'm feeling a little swimmy. So my body reset. So you might notice if you felt any kind of shift. The trick here is to not overdo it on the physical realm, because the physical exertion could conflict. So again, the yoga isn't the yoga to get out your P's and V's, fast, hot vinyasa. It has its purpose, but that isn't now. Okay, so hopefully you reevaluated your physical condition and come into the posture on the other side. So I just pivoted the toes around. Left hand is, my face is toward the left, looking over my left hand, turning my eyes even further to the left. So I'm looking out of the corner of my eyes and I'm breathing. Once again, you can choose if your arms feel fatigued, because this is the second time that they're up, you can drop them down. So your physical exertion exceeds your comfort, then the activity of having your eyes look out of the corner of your eye will be overwhelmed by the effort on a physical level. Nice slow breath. Also, don't forget to blink. As your eyes are in the corner, you may say, staring, 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 I'm staring. No, do blink. Blink and breathe, blink and breathe. Keeping the back leg nice and firm. And just a couple more moments here. And drop the arms down, gaze over to the left, then turn the face forward, toes forward. Right, and then wiggle and jiggle for a moment and check in. How do you feel? Shoulders, hips, feet. Is there any shift going on in your energy level? Here, how do you feel in your mind? You're gonna squiggle your feet together. Oh my goodness. Time does march on. Shake your legs out. Come back to standing mountain. We are gonna do one more posture, and then we'll see where we go from there. I think we've got time for one more. Please come down to hands and knees pose. If your knees are tender, be sure to put a blanket on your mat so that you have padding under your knees. This one is directly from the book I just showed you. It's called The Salamander. Let's see if I... Oh, all right. Hands and knees pose. Bring your right ear towards your right shoulder and then look to the left. So we're doing the opposite eye movement to head movement. So the ear is moving toward the shoulder. The eye is moving in the opposite, eyes are moving in the opposite direction. Right ear to right shoulder, both eyes looking left. And breathing. This is a shorter version. That is, you can stay here more than a minute. You can stay here 2 minutes. And it's not that there's diminishing returns, but you're going to find for your body, when does the reset happen? And with practice, the reset may happen sooner, like with neurogenic shaking. It might take 45 minutes to first discover a shaking or quaking quality in your practice, but after a while, you may be able to find it instantaneously. Practice. Go ahead and turn your eyes toward the mat and center your head. Take a moment here. If you want to release the wrists, if you have wrist congestion, release the wrists. And of course, we're going to do it the other side. Left ear moves toward the left shoulder. I'm not trying to touch the shoulder nor hunch the shoulder. And then turn the eyes toward the right. Opposite direction. And breathe. What we're doing here is we're contracting and extending muscles along the side of the neck, which is impacting the vagus nerve. And we're also utilizing the eye, both with vision and with the movement of the eyeball itself, which is impacting the vagus nerve. So we're doing just a little vagus nerve massage here, kind of just squeezing it a little bit in 2 different directions. Breathing. Finding that pleasant inhale and exhale cycle. No special breath rhythm here. Body can only take so much. 2 more breaths like this. Bring the head to center, bring the eyes to center. And if it's in your practice and your body will let you, push back into child's pose, both eyes closed. And take a moment to rest. If your head doesn't touch the floor in child's pose, stack your fists so that you can rest your forehead on something. This is very important. Having the head supported allows the muscles in the body to release, particularly the muscles in the neck, think vagus nerve, and along the back. It's the body's job to keep the head up. And if the head is being supported, then the body can kind of take a little rest, take a time out. So support your head, release the body. Check in with your emotional body, your energetic body, your physical body. And then come to sit and we'll check in. Seat. And check in right here with your cognitive body, that is your thinking mind, your wisdom mind, your evaluation and discerning mind. And we're all here together. So check in with your spiritual body, your body of connection.